it's putting on the... I don't understand what that is.
Oh, this weird bar?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's the graphic. Cool. All right. Fair enough.
So I'll give them... why you don't have somebody...
It's a pretty niche topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But it's a good one.
Well, thank you.
I mean, I'm a big community college fan.
Oh, good.
So I didn't go myself, but I have friends who teach at them, and it's a missed opportunity not to use it. So.
Well, that's what I'm preaching the gospel.
Yeah.
That was me.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I was like, ah.
the clicker worked. Yep,
It was a ghost. All right, we're gonna. Ooh, wow, that's louder than I remembered it. We're gonna get started in a minute. Is that what I sound like? Oh, wow. No wonder my coworkers are so annoyed. Anyway, if y'all take your seats, if you're gonna, if you do me a favor, if you're gonna stay in the room, we normally get people coming in late to these things. So if you're on the edge of the row, if you wouldn't mind like scooting into the middle a little bit, so when people come in, you don't get that whole like personal midsection of a stranger coming across your face. It's possibly not what you paid for when you got the ticket. It'd just be appreciated. And yeah, so people are going to file in the middle of this anyway. You don't have to fill them in on what they missed. It's their fault. Please make sure your phones are on silent mode. You probably bought a fancy watch to talk to your phone anyway, so you don't need it to buzz. Your wrist is going to do that for you now because you spent the extra money. The scale of that I still don't understand. Anyway, let's talk about education. So who here has gone to a 4-year university? Who extended their childhood by going another 2 years? All right, who skipped all that nonsense and went to a community college? Cool, there's some of you. So you're going to love this because that's what we're talking about today is actually using a community college to kind of promote a larger number of security professionals. Our speaker today is Tobin Shields. He's a full-time instructor at Mount Hood Community College with Security Plus, CEH, CHFI, and RHSCA certifications. I know what some of those are. He primarily teaches topics in IT and InfoSec as part of his intensive 2-year CTE program. He has a master's degree, he's got 2 in education and cybersecurity and information assurance. With 5 years working as an educator, he has a passion for teaching STEM topics, which is exactly why he's here today. Everybody, Tobin Shields.
Thank you. I definitely am not a big fan of the alphabet soup after my name, but I worked hard enough where I guess I'm supposed to put it on official things like this. I do have 2 master's degrees, and it is because I hate myself, apparently, and I don't like free time. No, I actually started as a high school English teacher, if you can believe it. My mom was a high school English teacher. She was a great role model to me, and I actually knew I just wanted to be a teacher. And my favorite subject in school was in English. I loved reading. I loved literature. But when I went to the Oregon Educator Fair, which is actually held right here at the Oregon Convention Center, it's where they get a giant amount of sort of fresh teachers to go and apply for jobs. And when I applied for the Beaverton School District, there was an English language arts position. I was one of 300 applicants. So it was a little discouraging trying to find that work. I ended up having something like 5 or 6 interviews, and I just kept getting a call back that said, look, you were really great, but there's someone who had 5-10 years of experience who we picked over you. So then I ended up applying to a CTE school in Gresham. CTE stands for Career Tech Ed. They primarily focus on vocational studies. And I had a little bit of background in web development. It was just kind of a hobby I had in college. So they had a computer science teacher position. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got my 5th, rejection letter. I'm going to go ahead and apply for this. And I was one of 2 applicants. The other guy didn't show up to the interview. So I got the job by default. Now, a colleague of mine, he said, he turned to me and he's like, okay, you're teaching web development. Great, I knew how to do that. Teaching Python programming, I'm like, cool, I kind of know how to do that. And he's like, you're also teaching this class called Cybersecurity. And I said, what is that? So over the summer, I ended up inundating myself in technology. I was already kind of a tech nerd. I built my own computers, I was a big gamer. So it was not hard for me to jump into this, but I'll tell you what, that first year was probably the hardest professional year I've ever had in my life. If you know any teachers, please make sure you pay due respects, because I'll tell you what, man, teaching is ridiculously hard in that first year. I did not know it was going to be that hard in learning a brand new subject, but I survived, and I developed a brand new passion for technology topics. I had no idea I could go to school for that. I had no idea I could teach that. And so, again, because I don't like free time, I decided to go back and get a master's degree in cybersecurity, because I knew that that's where my passion was. That opened up the opportunity for me to adjunct a little bit at Mount Hood Community College, which I'm going to talk about today, where I actually had a wonderful privilege to be teaching there full time. It was heartbreaking to leave the high school, but I am thrilled that I get to be supporting the next generation of InfoSec professionals. And I've done a lot to make up for lost time. I'm going to talk about kind of what some of the things I did and some of the things that the program is doing to also make it so that students don't have to go through 2 master's degrees in order to get an InfoSec, which is really going to be the main goal of hopefully the call to action that I have for you all. Again, I kind of talked about this. One of the things that I've done to make up for lost time is I am going through industry certification prep. I got all the theory, the disaster recovery, the CISP stuff in my master's program, but I still didn't know how to configure a router. I still didn't know how to make group policy and a Linux distribution. And so that's really what I'm using these certifications to do. It's not because I want to be the smartest person in the room, but it's giving me a roadmap to actually learn the things that I want to learn. So this is definitely going to get the alphabet soup after my name, and I've taught a range of topics as well. And again, I did teach English. Did happen. It was one random section of English, and I loved it a lot. So before I talk too much about our program and the things that you can do to support these students, I want to talk about the need for industry talent. Now, obviously, if you're in this room and you're in information security, you know that it's hard to find good people. You know it's hard because how many of you have been on a hiring committee to try and find someone? It's probably kind of challenging to find that sort of unicorn person who has all the certs you want, all the background you want. 9 times out of 10, if you can find a decent person, you're still training them up on half of the things that you need them to know. And that's from what industry keeps telling me over and over again. This is pulled from cyberseek.org. It's a collation with NICE, the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, which is under NIST, which, as you guys know, does a lot of the government policies, along with CompTIA. So take this with a grain of salt because there's some vendors influenced in this. But according to this data, there are over 300,000 open cybersecurity jobs nationwide, about 700,000 folks working in information security. That red middle number here, I think, is one of the most interesting, which is for every 2.3 open positions, which is an odd way of saying that, but for every 2.3 open positions, there's only 1 qualified candidate nationwide. So we have a negative unemployment in information security, and as the professionals in the room know, you're probably doing the work of about 2.3 people, right? But whenever I show students these numbers and I talk to people about this, everyone says, well, it's in Silicon Valley, or it's all in DC with the defense contractors. The number is a lot smaller when you drill down to the Portland metro area, but the Portland metro area still has plenty of opportunity. According to the same data, this is by county, so this is the Multnomah of kind of Vancouver County. There are 2,600 open positions in information security. About 5,300 of those folks are currently employed, which is crazy because that means about 1/5 of the entire InfoSec community is kind of here at BSides, right? There's supposed to be 1,000 people who registered. And while we do have quite a cool security community, it is now only 2.0 ratio supply and demand. We still have a lot of open jobs that are going unfilled. And so one of the things that we've been tasked as educational institutions is we are being tasked with solving this crisis of we're trying to graduate as many people as possible to fill these roles for a plethora of reasons. The government obviously wants highly qualified people so that they can work for the government, right? Industry needs qualified people so that you can defend your stuff. But my students really value this because this is a highly livable wage. It is an exciting career opportunity that requires a skill set. Yes, it requires training, but it doesn't require a master's degree. And in a lot of cases, it doesn't even require a bachelor's degree if you're focusing primarily on technical topics. And so community colleges are really, really specially placed to be able to offer what we call CTE programs. Has anyone ever heard that acronym before, CTE? It stands for Career Technical Education. And education swings back and forth all the time, right? Back in like the early 20s, it was all about vocational. You didn't really learn a lot of literature. You didn't really think about the humanities. And then we realized that, well, it's pretty enriching to learn that stuff. And so then the modern day school that we know it today is very liberal arts focused, which again, I'm speaking as an English major, so it benefited me personally, benefited my soul, but it sure didn't benefit my career, right? I mean, the joke is, you're a well-rounded human being after an English degree, but then you can either go into tech writing, or you can be a novelist, or you can do something else. And the other two are kind of hard to break into. And so there's a swing back toward that vocational-based study where community colleges are offering 2-year degrees, we call them Applied Associates of Science, where the entire focus is on getting you skilled up in a subject. And we started with things that we did really well already, like welding technologies and automotive technologies. Mount Hood has the craziest, coolest automotive technology where you go through a whole apprenticeship program, you're working with Subaru and Chrysler and all these named brands, and you're working in these shops, and these students have guaranteed jobs at the end of their program, pulling in between $50,000 and $80,000 a year at the end of 2 years. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to see, well, look, there's this giant need for cybersecurity. We know that if we skill them up rapidly as possible in IT, system administration, InfoSec topics, that we can still give students that ability to have a livable wage and a high-need, high-wage job. And so that's exactly what we did. In 2011, Mount Hood Community College revitalized our traditional IT, sysadmin sort of networking degree. And in talking with our advisory committee and our advisory councils, we realized that, hey, we're going to offer a degree path that focuses exclusively on cybersecurity. It's a 2-year program that our students can walk into industry with the competence to do the job of effectively a security operations analyst, but they could go into network engineering with kind of a focus of security and things like that. But this is not a pitch for the program. That's not why I'm here. Some good is we have graduated hundreds of students out of our program. The majority do go on to find meaningful employment. It's always hard to track alumni, but we've had a lot of success stories. And our students tell us that our training works. We always ask them, hey, what's one thing that you wish you were taught? What's one thing that was a total waste of your time? Because we want to ask those hard questions because we want to responsibly train our students. I don't want to bore you. We have primarily 3 cores that our students go through. Networking, where they get CCNA, Cisco. They have an IT or system administration. We do Windows, we do Linux, we do Python scripting, database management. They kind of do a little bit of everything. And then, of course, we have an information security core where students are going through effectively the Security Plus or fundamentals tracks. They're doing capture the flags. We have ethical hacking courses, cyber operations courses, forensics. And really, it's a combination of all 3 of these that make you not just a good security person, but a great IT person as well, right? So a lot of our folks and a lot of our students don't actually, well, I shouldn't say a lot. Some of our students don't go into cybersecurity. They go into network engineering. They go into system administration. I have a student right now who's an Azure cloud engineer. We don't even teach that stuff in our program, and he's able to still land that job because he had the competence to be able to grapple with this stuff. Fun fact, we are going to be offering cloud virtualization starting next year. But I want to talk about the bad. I want to talk about what we're still not doing enough. And this is where I have a call to action to you all. Academia lives in a bubble. And I'm going to ruffle feathers from some of my other 4-year and 6, master's degree and advanced studies. But I'm sorry, if you're teaching cybersecurity and you actually haven't done cybersecurity in a couple of years, you don't know what cybersecurity is. You don't even know what IT is if you haven't done it in a couple of years. And so the problem is that a lot of academia approaches this in a very theoretical standpoint. They approach it as, oh, well, we're going to harp on the TCP/IP stack. We're going to think about everything as the OSI model, which is important for implementing and doing research and reverse engineering. But again, if you can't plug that switch into the router, then you're not going to effectively do the work that's required of the daily job. And I guess you could pick that up, while you're working, but what's the purpose of getting an entire degree where you have to learn everything on the job when you're done? So one of the things that I have tried to do, and our department has tried to do, is break out of our bubble. And we really, really want to seek the help of industry professionals to be able to make our program a lot better. So I have a mighty need from you all. I want to talk about some ways that you can give back, not just to our program, but I'd love to connect to you if you're a PCC alumni, if you're an OIT alumni, if you're an EOU alumni, if you're a PSU alumni. There are so many schools now that are embedding InfoSec technologies that I want to connect you with the faculty in those organizations to be able to do the following things. Now, these are the things that I personally want, but I do know that other faculty will find at least one of these valuable for their students. I'm going to challenge you to teach courses seriously. We teach online and night courses. Mentor faculty, offer internships, and sit in our advisory council. So I'm actually serious when I say I want you to come teach a class at Mount Hood Community College. Even if you have no teaching experience, even if you have never thought of yourself as a teacher, we need help right now with 4 classes. Cloud and virtualization, primarily we're gonna be teaching AWS, but convince me why we should do Azure or Google. We need help with digital forensics because no one on our team are digital forensics pros. We're going out of a textbook. We have some online labs that we've bought. Students will have an okay time, but we want someone who actually knows forensics to be leading this class. We want to implement log analysis. I spent some time at OHSU doing SOC work over the summer, and I got to learn Splunk for the first time, and it made me realize how have I not been teaching this in my program. So we want to do log analysis and log analytics, and I would love someone who works with Splunk on their daily basis to come in and help me teach that class. And finally, we've been just partnered with Red Hat, and now we're delivering official Red Hat curriculum that I'm only a one-man army and I can only teach so many classes. And so if you work with Linux or some Red Hat variant, then you're qualified to teach this class. And I do want to emphasize that industry experience here is going to trump degree requirements. So while it's cool if you have a master's degree or if you have a bachelor's degree, we would really, really like you to come in. If you're a pro in your topic, we would love for you to come in and help teach some of our classes. Now, I know different schools are different, but at Mount Hood Community College, if you're teaching in a CTE program like ours, you do not need the master's degree if you have the industry experience to back it up. Plus, you get to geek out about a subject. I mean, how cool is that? You know, a lot of times in your day job, you don't get to just geek out about a subject. You're serving the needs of your organization. But here's when you actually get to go in and deep dive into a subject and share that passion with a room of students who also share that same passion. In addition, we would love for you to help mentor faculty and even help with lessons. So maybe you don't want to teach a whole class, but let's just say that I want to do a Wireshark lab where I want to have my students take a look at a brute forcing attack or some latest vulnerability that's out in the wild. It takes me hours and sometimes days to build these simulated environments because I have to create all these VMs, I have to research the vulnerability, I have to go through this process where you've literally captured this data in your day job. If you're able to sanitize it, or you can share with me interesting logs, Wireshark captures, new tools that are supporting your work, or news updates in the industry, that's the kind of stuff that's really valuable to our faculty. And it might come off as patronizing, like, oh, well, you don't know this and I know this, I'm gonna share it with you. And I could just not respond to your email. Like, that's the worst thing that's gonna happen, right? But 9 times out of 10, if you're sharing something really cool with me, if you wanna come in and say, hey, there's this really cool new tool, and I have the ability to do maybe like an hour lab, I have the stuff that could set it up, you're literally saving me hours of time and giving me a better product than I ever could. Because my job is to lead classes, my job is to advise students, and I do not have the time that I want to sit and build these amazing experiences. So why we default to having online environments for students. But I think it's a much more meaningful experience if I can actually take what's actually being seen in industry and present it. And again, what you do in your day job takes me hours to simulate. The other thing as well is to build and offer internships. This is a thing that's really hard in IT, and I totally get it. You don't want to have some random kid come into your entire critical InfoSec infrastructure, teach them how to do the stuff, and then bail after 3 months. Like, I understand the hesitancy around that. But internship experiences, apprenticeship programs, projects that students can work on are so incredibly valuable because we're experiencing the weirdest thing. Do you remember how I talked about how there was like a 2-to-1 ratio? People are like, we're not finding jobs. I still have students who tell me that they can't find work. And I ask them all the time, I ask employers, why aren't you hiring my students? And they say, well, they don't have a year to 2 years experience. And I'm like, dude, you don't have that luxury when this job has been open for 4, 5, 6 months and no one is filling it. But we still have battles with HR who won't even look at particular applications. It's not everybody, we're working on it, but the reality is that we're still fighting traditional HR. So one of the most important things that you can provide my students is an internship, that 6 months, that 3 months of job experience, so that it gets through the horrifying AI HR filters that we're really experiencing today. And it's everything from basic IT or help desk, which I know is an InfoSec, but at least they're inundated in the technology they're going to be securing in a couple of months. Vulnerability analysis is great because it doesn't take a lot to run an SSScan, does it? It doesn't take a lot to monitor for alerts. I figured out how to do SOC analytic work, relatively low stakes, in about 2 weeks. And I was able to get set up. I basically escalated the stuff that I didn't know what I was looking at. And I sent emails to people when they had infected USB drives, right? Like, it was the daily work that sustains an organization, but it doesn't require a lot of privilege, right? It doesn't require a deep look into your network, especially if you're paired with a mentor who has those permissions. Controls testing. We had a really great experience where we had a handful of students come into an organization and just do basic controls testing. It wasn't a penetration test, but as an example, they were really worried about a particular type of vulnerability. So he had the students leverage a couple of tools just built into Kali Linux to see if the vulnerability would work. They tuned it a little bit, and it turned out it worked pretty well. And it turned out he had a typo in one of his Splunk alerts, which caused the alert to not actually run. So he found that just these really basic control testings were incredibly valuable to basically allow proof of concepts for the blue team defending work that he was doing. And then the final is Project Aid. If you just have like a hellacious project coming up and you could really help an extra pair of hands for a couple of months, I have an army of students willing to help you. And they would find it so incredibly valuable. I don't want them getting coffee for you. I don't want them running prints for you. But if there is some grunt work that needs to be done, they're going to find that grunt work valuable because they've never done it before. If they need to run scans and analyze scans, they're going to find that valuable because they haven't done it for 8 hours a day for 6 months yet, right? It's still brand new and fresh to them. These are the kinds of things that, again, not only provide meaningful experience to students, you'll be literally changing these students' lives, but it also gives them the ability to break into the industry. Because again, that HR filter is really, really starting to screw with some of our students. And the most successful of my students are ones who have previous work experience in IT or ones who know someone, which is kind of how half of getting hired works. I do want to shout out 2 organizations who have allowed for internships with our students. Cylance has done some really good work doing the controls testing, and we created an internship model where students come in for 2 summers now. It was really successful the second time around. And I do want to give a shout out to OHSU and their blue team department because they allowed me to come in, and I'm setting up talks with them to have a student come in and do a rotating, basically SOC analytic role with them. What I found is that if I can get in front of you and I can brainstorm some ideas about how to get a student in your organization, we tend to be able to make it work. The problem, though, is I just don't know who many of you are, and I don't know the organizations that you represent, and that's my call to action to you is say, hey, I'm interested, I don't know where to start, let's talk. And again, if it's not me, PCC. If it's not me, it's OIT. If it's not me, it's any organization that you maybe are close to, or again, that you're possibly an alumni. And then finally, I need you to just give us advice. One of the things about being a CTE program of study, which basically means that we're focusing on career tech ed, is we have to demonstrate that we are working with industry. And one of the ways that we do that is we have something called an advisory council. This is a requirement that the state has. And effectively what it is, it's a group of really smart people who work in industry, who take a look at some of our classes, our program as a whole, and they tell us the direction that we need to go. They tell us whether or not we should be teaching AWS versus Azure, PowerShell versus Bash. They get into the nitty-gritty about really what we should be teaching. Because the worst thing isn't that we're not teaching the right thing, it's the misqualification that kills me. I would hate to invest 10 weeks of time with a student and have them waste their time learning a tool that's being faded out rather than the tool that's emerging. And that's what the advisory council can have us do. Now, I love the colleagues who came before me. He filled that advisory council with CISOs and managers and vendor reps, which looks good on paper, but it doesn't help me answer the question, should I be teaching AWS or Azure, right? So my goal is I want to get more engineers, I want to get more blue team defenders, I want to get more SOC analysts on that advisory committee to help guide some of those really particular questions to help inform our practice. And it's not just me. I know that PCC has a similar advisory council. I'm not sure about the four-year institutions, but I know any community college has those advisory council if they're a CTE program of study. So I don't want to take too much of more of your time. I know this is a shorter talk, but I am going to have a table in the CTF room. And really what I'm going to find most valuable is if you come and have a conversation with me. Because if you're serious about wanting to give back to an organization, if you're serious about wanting to connect with students and actually make a meaningful difference, and I don't mean that to pay lip service, I mean you will actually make a meaningful difference for 15, 20, 30 people, then you can do so by partnering with your local school. If it's not Mount Hood, I know my logo's all over this and this is my name, but I would love to put you in contact with the department heads at PCC, OIT, and I can't speak for my colleagues in other schools. They can tell you to just blow off and live in their bubble. That's fine, they have the right to do that, but I'll at least put you in contact with them. And if they say no, I'll say yes, I promise you. So that's the biggest thing that I wanna do. Again, if I graduate 100 students a year, we're still not hitting that 2,600 open job positions. We need to work with our fellow schools. We need to work with industry to ensure that we are training the next generation of professionals. And it's so easy for you to get tunnel vision, and it's so easy for you to just want to focus on your own day job, to forget that maybe the people around you are aging out. Maybe you don't have a lot of new talent, and maybe you're just listening to the same 4 or 5 people talk about the same 4 or 5 things, and you just need another colleague in there. I can tell you that at my time at OHSU, their security and privacy department ballooned from a team of 10 to a team of 30 or 40. So they're looking for good talent, and I imagine that's also the same for you guys. So I want to be respectful of time right now. So I actually have about 5-ish minutes for questions. I would love it if anyone wanted to ask me questions about the program, about how you could help, or anything else that might be on your mind. I saw a hand over here.
Just one question. I noticed that you mentioned college, you mentioned community college, you mentioned internships. One of the things you started with, though, was actually an apprenticeship.
Yep.
Where you work with, you say, I'm going to train, I'm going to help, I'm going to train somebody for this position.
Yep.
You're the candidate for that. I've not heard of a lot of that program. It's always been the internship.
Yep.
Because, free work, right?
Right.
And I think that's one of the main problems we're having in this industry. We're trying to compare it to these large automotive industries and heavy industries. And really, cybersecurity and IT is more of an apprenticeship model. There's so many moving pieces.
Yes.
Anything else, you're wasting time on languages, you're wasting time on all these other curriculums that are not fit into that particular process.
Right.
For an apprenticeship, it's like, it's a vocational goal. You treat a lot of vocations.
And actually, I want to focus on that. So we have Mount Hood is a big enterprise network, right? We have our own IT staff and we have our own security department. And so it took a little bit of massaging, but I actually worked with our IT department, and we've created an apprenticeship for our students. So they had a seasoned veteran pro retire. They used the FTE to hire 4 students, which has been probably one of the most enriching and meaningful experience for my students. So I do want to speak to the fact that the apprenticeship model is ideal, but hitting the ground running, if you've never welcomed a student in before, we could start with a 2 or 3 month experience. And if you have a need for a longer term student, then I think an apprenticeship model is better for everyone, because then you waste less money on retraining the students, right? And you're also getting the most that you can out of that student as well. We just got to make sure we're respecting their time if they're still in school, that they're able to balance the work and school, because we are.
I think that's the key. If you're doing an apprenticeship, that is a job.
Right, exactly.
As opposed to an internship.
Right.
Which is
Just kind of like a part-time thing, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, anybody who has additional questions, if you could come to the microphone so everyone could hear. But we've got more than 5 minutes for this. So
Okay.
we got at least 10 minutes for questions, so folks
Yeah,
can
please.
come up.
And again, if you don't have a question right this second and you want to have a one-on-one with me, I literally am going to be at that booth. I do want to attend talks because I'm a nerd about this stuff too, but I'm going to try and be at my table as much as I can today. I am going to be repping the school, so feel free to grab flyers about the program, but my goal here is not to sell you on something. My goal here is to ask for your help. But if you pick up flyers to take classes, that would be cool. Yeah.
So I have a question regarding possible high school programs. You said you were part of a high school program?
It was.
Do you know if that is catching on at this point? Is there any
Yes.
development going on in that area as well?
So community college is really great at offering what's called dual credit. So you could take an English class while you're in high school. And we've had a pretty well established program for the humanities. I have been working with a number of the local high schools to offer our fundamentals of cybersecurity class at the high school level. We've offered what are called PLCs, which are professional learning communities, where I've trained high school teachers to offer that class. In the East Multnomah County area, we have schools in the Gresham Barlow School District, We have schools in the Centennial School District and as well as the Sandy School District that are offering cybersecurity classes at the high school level. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it's something we need more on, absolutely, because they don't even know what cybersecurity is until I talk to them about it. Any other questions? Okay. Well, you guys, oh, yeah.
I was just going to encourage the audience to thank you with applause. Thank you,
Oh,
Tobin.
well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. And again, contact me, please. A week from now, contact me. I am totally open. I'm totally approachable, and I would love to hear from you. Thank you, guys. Oh, thank you. Yay.